Have you ever woken up in the morning feeling a quiet weight on your chest? Not sharp, not dramatic, just heavy enough to follow you through the day. Nothing is wrong. There is no obvious crisis, no visible disaster. Yet everything feels a little off, muted, colorless, lacking energy. Or maybe it happens at night. When the world finally goes quiet, you lie in bed and sense something inside you has fractured. Not broken loudly, but cracked slowly. You search for a reason. You replay your day, you scan your life, and still nothing clear appears. The feeling persists, real, persistent, and hard to ignore. This is one of the most common, yet most misunderstood inner experiences. Feeling bad without knowing why. And the confusion it creates is often more exhausting than the feeling itself. Today, let's approach this experience not as a problem to be fixed, but as a message to be understood. Often this state isn't random, it has meaning. Even when it doesn't speak clearly, it tells a story. The first reason is lack of emotional awareness. Many of us were never taught how to understand our emotion. Emotions aren't simple signals, they are layered, complex, and sometimes hidden. Anger can mask grief. Fatigue may be unprocessed fear. Emptiness might indicate suppressed desire or sense of meaninglessness. When the emotional system is overloaded, the brain simplifies the message into something vague. I don't feel right. Without language, awareness, or permission to explore the feeling, it lingers, like a fog that never left. The next reason is accumulation of small stressors. We often assume understanding comes first, then feeling. In reality, it's usually the opposite. The body sends imbalance before the mind can explain it. Tension appears, energy dips, sleep feels lighter. The mind hasn't built a story yet, but body is signaling. This happens especially when we have stress that builds slowly. Minor disappointments or a small frustration, repeated annoyance. Individually, they aren't dramatic, but together they create a wave you can name. You feel something without knowing exactly what it is. The third reason is the brain's negativity bias. Our brain isn't designed to make us happy, it's designed to keep us alive. It scans constantly for potential threats, inconsistencies, and dangers, even psychological ones. Negativity bias makes discomfort easier to notice than contentment. Sometimes the brain flags a problem, not because something is actually wrong, but because uncertainty feels unsafe. The result, the body stays tense, the mind stays alert, and unease persists without a clear cause. The next reason, the reason number 4, is physical and environmental factors. Sometimes the cause isn't purely psychological. Sleep deprivation, hormonal changes, nutritional deficiencies, or chronic stress can directly affect mood regulation. The challenge? These factors often come without a story, making them harder to recognize. The brain translates this stored signal emotionally. Low mood, irritability, emptiness. Without linking this feeling to real-life causes, confusion builds. Why do I feel this way? The next reason is suppression of emotion. Many of us grow up learning that certain emotions were unacceptable, so we didn't express them. Eventually, we stop even recognizing them. But emotions that aren't allowed to exist emotionally don't disappear. They lose clarity and returns as general discomfort, present, persistent, but undefined. The mind avoids the source to protect itself from pain, shame, or conflict. All that remains is sensation, a strip of context. The next reason is repetition and overload. In modern life, not all suffering comes from traumas. Some of it comes from constant repetition, living without pause or depth, constant stimulation, constant comparison, pressure to perform. Each stressor might feel manageable alone, but together they create an emotion that, one morning, you wake up feeling heavy, I don't know why, but your system does. Number 7 is avoidance and unacknowledged realities. Sometimes the mind avoids truth deliberately. A relationship that no longer fits, a life path that feels empty, a version of yourself you've outgrown. Avoidance can work temporarily, but unacknowledged realities don't vanish. They appear indirectly. You'll feel the shadow, but the source remains hidden. The long-term effects of ignoring this feeling, when this feeling remains unnamed, it shapes behavior. Overthinking and searching endlessly for answers, disconnecting, losing joy slowly, self-blame for something we don't understand. The most damaging effect is believing that feeling bad without a reason means something is wrong with you. But what if the state isn't malfunction, but a signal of awareness? What if it's not about weakness, but about something inside asking to be noticed? Often feeling bad without knowing why means you've been ignoring something quietly important. Understanding doesn't start with fixing, it starts with listening. Sometimes clarity alone reduces suffering. So let's talk about solutions and practical insights. The first is awareness before interpretation. Not every feeling needs to be immediately solved. Sometimes the need to figure everything out becomes another form of escape. Before searching for explanation, pause. Notice what your body already knows. The tension is in your chest. The exhaustion behind your thoughts. The quiet resistance you feel toward certain part of your life. The body often recognizes truths about that mind is willing to name it. A few times during the day, allow yourself a moment without stimulation. No scrolling, no noise, no analysis. Just observe. And instead of asking, what is wrong with me? Ask something like, what inside me has been waiting for my attention? Number 2 is question the invisible rules you live by. Many people spend years trying to earn a sense of worth they were thought was conditional. Be agreeable, be productive, be needed, be strong. Over time, these invisible rules become internal prisons, and eventually the soul becomes exhausted from performing a version of itself designed for acceptance rather than the truth. When discomfort appears, pause and ask yourself, am I betraying my own values or simply failing someone else's expectation? That question alone can separate authenticity from conditioning. Number 3 is define rest and limits. Modern life glorifies constant movement, but endless productivity often disconnects people from themselves. Not every opportunity deserves your energy. Not every responsibility deserves access to your peace. Sometimes the exhaustion is not weakness. Sometimes It's the mind's final attempt to force you to slow down. Try removing what unnecessary demands from your own life. Not because you're lazy, but because clarity requires space to breathe. Number 4 is compassion without self-abandonment. Empathy becomes dangerous when it requires the abandonment of yourself. Many people help others because they fear guilt, conflict, or rejection. But support that restores your own stability, eventually turns into silent resentment. Real compassion includes honesty about your limits. Before saying yes to someone, pause long enough to ask, am I acting from sincerity or from fear of disappointing them? Because there is a difference between kindness and self-erasure. Number 5 is to stop treating fear as prophecy. The mind often presents fear as certainty, but imagined suffering frequently feels more convincing than reality itself. Many people live emotionally trapped inside future that never arrive. The goal is not eliminate fear. The goal is just to stop obeying it blindly. When anxiety appears, ask yourself, is this an actual danger or just a story my mind keeps rehearsing? A small distinction can change the way you experience your entire inner world. But perhaps the real problem was never feeling itself. Perhaps the suffering came from being disconnected from what the feeling was trying to reveal. Not every unexplained heaviness is a sign that something is wrong with you. Sometimes it's the quiet signal of a life that no longer fits the person you are becoming. And maybe healing does not begin the moment you find answers. Maybe it begins the moment you stop running from the questions. Because some emotions are not interruption to life, they are invitation to finally see clearly. And sometimes the feeling you were trying to escape was actually the part of yourself asking to be heard. See you in the next episode. Take care.